Hello and welcome to Accurity Data Vibes. I am Petr Mahdalicek, founder and CEO of data solution companies that assist businesses with their data-related challenges. It's been my privilege to converse with data experts, and I am thrilled to have you join us today. Together, we'll delve into crucial data topics and we'll navigate the maze of data issues to come up with guidance for you. So, let's get started on this exciting journey of data discovery.
Hello and welcome to the fifth Accurity Data Vibes. Today we will talk about Business Glossary, the power of Business Glossary. Business Glossary is a cornerstone of any solid data management initiative. For this topic, today I invited, and I'm happy that he accepted, John Lillard, Senior Director of Technology from Transparent Partners. Hello, John.
Hello, thank you for having me in.
Absolutely. And we will talk with John about some basics about business glossaries, what are the benefits, why companies should pay attention into their creation and maintenance, how to create glossaries, of course, and how to extend and how to make sure that the initiative will stand for a long time. For the beginning, I would like John, if you would be so nice and spread some word about you and about your background with us, and of course also about the company.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me in today. I'm not sure I'd call myself a data expert, but I'll take the compliment. I have been working in technology for many years. Not necessarily proud of the fact, but I remember when computers didn't have hard drives. And I've worked in different sectors from security, life safety, the new term Homeland Security in the United States after 9/11, and then Department of Defense. And so now I work in the marketing field as a technology strategist for large brands. Our typical customers are the CMOs and their staff, and we help them determine the best way to use their data to connect effectively with their clients. And so that's what Transparent does. We are a tech and data consultancy supporting brands of all sizes, and we help them empower their connections through data.
Thank you for the introduction. Basically, the idea why I was thinking that you will be the best partner for this discussion is that building a business glossary on the business glossary itself is actually not a very much a data or a technical topic. It's much more a business topic. So, and therefore, I believe that what you guys do and what you did is very awesome. And it's also to point out that this job must be done basically by a business and can be supported by the IT, but it's more a business related job than IT job. So this is the main reason why I was so glad that you accepted my invitation today. Maybe for the start, can you explain why actually companies are investing and why they should invest their energy and resources into creating a business glossary?
Absolutely. You and I are both speaking English right now, but we have a lot of local dialects and terms that we use that may not be translatable to each other. The same thing happens within a business. And so the first symptom of a lack of understanding, mutual understanding about terms, is when meetings or conversations or documents start to become arguments about, are we talking about a customer, or are we talking about a client, or are we talking about a consumer? That's my favorite example. And so at the purest level, it's establishing the common lexicon for your organization. It does not have to be a very technical thing. In fact, unlike a lot of other documents associated with data management, the glossary is a human document made by humans, consumed by humans and used by humans. And so the other part, as we move further down the life cycle of any technology implementation, it's all about the data, and the data is only as good as the interpretation of that data. And so in our business, it's all about running reports, creating dashboards, getting insights, all those fancy words for understanding what is happening within the marketing organization. If a term as simple as customer is not widely adopted, then a report that talks about the number of customers will have different interpretations. And so as we started to implement technologies for our customers, we started realizing that the basic concepts that they would use the technology for were not widely accepted across the organization. So that's where it becomes more and more at the practical level, at the implementation level. You have to agree on those terms, or you're not going to agree on the data that comes out of those systems.
So if I understand what you're saying, so you're saying that the main motivation is higher efficiency and enablement actually of new technologies and implementation of new techs, correct?
Yeah. So as a technologist, I can't implement an effective system if the customer doesn't agree on what those things are. As a architect or business analyst, it's hard to have a conversation with my client if we're not talking along those same terms.
I have to agree. I also seen, of course, so many meetings where we were talking about some reports, and we were discussing why on this report is another figure than in the other report if the label is the same, and why actually an active customer is seen differently in marketing than in sales and then in accounting. And but it's actually also very interesting thing on this is that it seems very simple. So so it's just a pure list of some terms, and why actually we should, let's say, be concerned about creating. On the other side, I saw so many projects that they failed. Basically, that they were trying to build a business glossary and they didn't succeed on this. So it's obviously not as simple. So maybe can you explain what actually a business glossary is? Is it just a list of terms, or is it more sophisticated?
I think at the most basic level, it is a list of terms and the definition of that term and potentially the typical use of that term and maybe a relationship to other terms. So I think I just described 4 or 5 columns in a spreadsheet. As a glossary matures, you may want to have acronyms, other relationships, other things that you track. But that's one of the things I would not recommend as a first start. The first start, let's agree on what terms we use in our business, and let's agree on how we define them. And if there's any special rules about when somebody or when something applies to that term. Again, I'll go back to the customer one. Active customer, is that someone who has purchased in the last 2 years, or is it someone who has purchased in the last month? Those little rules, they're not fancy equations. They're just kind of setting the conditions for when you would use that term. You can make it very complicated. I'm an artist at making things complicated, but I think the challenge of building a glossary is a human challenge. So let's not make it a technical challenge. Let's not make it a big process challenge. Let's start off with a spreadsheet. I love tools. I have lots of great tools on my computer, but at the end of the day, let's not overcomplicate it. Let's start off with the big terms that are being used. We talked about reports. I always like the outcomes of it. What comes out of this system? What's the information used for? Whether it's a report or a receipt or a business intelligence graph, etc. Those are where terms start to become human, and humans consume those terms. So work backwards from there. Another place would be the people who actually, run business performance reports. They report up to a higher level. What were our sales last month? What were our transactions last month? Things like that matter to business leadership. And then the hard part is agreeing. The hard part is agreeing, because in companies particular, people tend to adopt terms and their own definitions of terms. And so that's where the real art of the work comes in, is getting to a point of agreement and getting to a point of understanding. And it's okay to disagree. Maybe it ends up being two different terms, or the term customer active and the customer delinquent, something like that. And so bottom line is try to keep the process simple, because the hard part really is agreeing on some of those things.
So this is where we are getting to the start small and win big. Because I also believe that, especially in this case, it's better to start with, let's say, smaller goals, and to not to try to make too much noise, because too much noise then make maybe too much mess. So can you give us some tips from your experience, so how to make sure that the initial project, so where you, let's say, we start with this initiative, we would like to define our first glossary, where to start, how to start, and what to avoid?
Absolutely. So a glossary, the first, I think, most important thing is a glossary that's not adopted or recognized is just, shelfware. It's just a piece of paper. So I think the first part is endorsement from a senior leader that has some sort of authority or influence over the organization to say, this is how we're going to talk now, or this is how we're going to use terms. The second part of that is start small. You don't have to do it for the entire enterprise. You don't have to do it for the entire corporation. Maybe it's just the marketing department. Maybe it's just the IT department. And then work within that sphere of influence first. Focus on those terms. And then a lot of times what can happen is you show others the value of something you've done. They want to copy you. They want to be as smart as you, and then they want to adopt it, and then it can grow. I think many of the things we try in our world, like process improvement, enterprise architectures, you name it, put enterprise in front of it, starting at the top and working your way down tends to make it very hard, and you get a lot of resistance. So start small, start with those who are kind of on the same wavelength as you, work in the same world as you, and then maybe you can influence others to start to do the same thing. But the worst case scenario is, let's say I'm just a marketing department and I publish my glossary. When I publish a report on performance of my marketing campaigns, I have a little guide for the user to say, when we say this term, it means this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And actually, I have a few questions now in my head. So let's start with the simplest one, which is if you let's say start, and it's not, let's say, the glossary is not part of some of your project, but it's let's say CMO, let's say ask you to create a glossary because he has troubles during the meetings with the other C-levels, and there are some discussion with his colleagues from sales or from the other departments, mostly from controlling and so on. So where actually you would start, or is there some golden bullet how to or silver bullet, sorry, how to start with picking up the right topic, or what are, let's say, the indicators that show us, yes, this is the good match, here we should start, and then continue with additional stakeholders, with additional topics and so on?
Yeah, so I think there's two sides to that. Typically what we experience in the real world is we're trying to activate a new piece of technology that multiple business units are going to share. And that's when we start to really see the impact of a disagreement on terms. In that case, you're probably going to have more than just one sphere of influence. Just like any project that I manage, more than one sphere of influence. So you kind of have to designate those folks that are the deciders. There's a term called RACI, responsible, accountable, consulted, informed. There's all kinds of ways, but at the end of the day, for any one group of stakeholders, people, workers, there should be one final decider. And so if you talk about the RACI, the accountable person, there should only be one accountable person that makes that decision. So let's say it's a project that involves sales, marketing, and product. Well, if you're doing a project that affects all of those people, the glossary should not be the biggest problem that they're worried about. And they should have a vested interest in the success of that project. That's why I try to say, let's keep it simple, because these people are resource constrained. They're being expected to do more and more with less every day. So if you come forward as the person pitching the project to their boss, don't make it sound like you're trying to boil the ocean. Don't make it sound like you're trying to do everything. Make it, this is why we're doing it. This is the value of it. And this is why it matters to you. And I've picked the simplest way of doing it.
Understood. Thank you. I see that we got some question from Bart, and he's asking, when you start, how do you define the owner of the glossary? Will that evolve over time? So I think the ownership is very, very important part of every business glossary. So can you please comment this?
Yeah, so I think you could even have an owner for each term. I know that gets a little ugly, but what I have found is if it's an organization of a size that has multiple, stakeholder groups in it, you may have a discrete owner, accountable person for each term or each group of terms. And why I like that is, let's say the first round of terms that the working, level have come up with, and they want the owner to approve it. If there's 3 owners and they have to agree on every term, but the reality is they don't really have a need to agree on every term. They need to agree on the ones that are within their space. So yes, there should be someone who owns the configuration of the glossary that champions any changes to it and future maturation of it. But you may have to have a group of owners, only one each per a set of terms or a term. What I like about that is then you can only take the ones that person is technically accountable for to them for the review and approval. They don't have to look at 100, maybe they only look at 20.
Makes sense. Where I saw some troubles, let's call it like that, or difficulties, is that how to motivate people to become owner, or how to decide if some term should be owned by this or other department. So is there, or do you have similar experience, like when you're introducing this process in the companies?
Yeah, so a couple of things about that. There will be cases where all 3 of the leaders own that term. At the end of the day, all 3 leaders are going to have some kind of use for that term, right? There's the naive approach of, well, if there are 3 leaders in an organization, they should know how to get along and they should know how to work together. But there are some negotiating techniques out there that, there's tons of courses on that about how to understand their point of view. Okay, this is his point of view, this is his point of view, this is her point of view, and how to find that common ground. Again, that's a soft skill, not an engineering skill that we all need to work on.
Talking about the project, so when we succeed on the first iteration, and then of course, I would say the biggest magic and the most important part is how to make sure that all this effort that we spent on creating these terms and harmonizing them across let's say different departments or teams, how to make sure that they will be used, how to make sure that they will be not forgotten in 2-3 months, and in 1 year somebody will ask why we spent this all money and time. And
Right.
so do you have some tips how to make sure that the glossary lives, because it's a living process? So
Right. I think there's a couple thoughts there. The first one is that the glossary should have a champion or someone that is always pointing to the glossary, and as many people as you can have that adopt that habit of looking to the glossary is important. Number one thing is it has to be accessible and it has to be managed. And so even if you were to do, say, a Google Sheet or a Microsoft Excel, it has to be hosted and managed where everyone can get to it without a struggle, just like any other kind of governance document. And it does kind of take a little bit of, even within my own organization, we have a glossary. And sometimes I'm the bad guy on the call that says, well, why are you using that term for this? This is the term that we've agreed upon. Luckily, in my organization, the 3 leaders of the organization, the partners, have all agreed to those terms. And so I can at least I have that senior level backing that that's the way we're going to talk. But keep it at the forefront. Someone has to be the one, prophesizing why the glossary is important, why terms are important, why words matter. And then it has to be maintained, and it has to be accessible. So one thing I would point out, though, is you keep it small and you keep it simple, you're not spending a lot of money.
I definitely agree. For the beginning, it's actually the best way, because if you start a project that costs millions, the expectations from the project are according to the budget. And so if you start small and if you bring some results fast, and you prove to the audience that the effort that they spent is bringing something, so that they spend less time to explaining the numbers, explaining the terms and so on, it's easier then to continue, and it's easier to win the support, because without the support, it will die after the project will finish. So
absolutely.
Maybe can you tell us a little bit more about some more advanced features of a glossary? So we are talking about a very simple one, but there is also terms like taxonomy or traceability or policies, and should be policies part of it or not? So what is your opinion about this?
Sure. So a glossary and a taxonomy are kind of the same thing, but I deliberately leave that off the table, because if I say words like that with business leaders, their eyes kind of gloss over that I'm pitching some big expensive data project to them. But as the glossary matures, there'll be relationships between terms. There'll be business rules for certain terms. Like I always go back to my customer example. A lot of times if I have the term customer in someone's glossary, there's likely 5 variants of it: customer active, customer delinquent, customer, ready to buy. And then there should be some very simple business rules that says when a customer is active versus delinquent versus, ready to buy. And it doesn't have to be complex. If the person has made a purchase in the past 30 days, they are a ready to purchase customer. Don't overcomplicate it. The other thing is acronyms. We like to throw acronyms around. Acronyms are terms technically, so you want to include acronyms, but also reference, if there's an acronym that has 3 terms in it, you may need to reference, cross-reference between them. And then you could get into grouping. You could get into grouping of terms. That's where fancier tools come into play, because you can then say that this term falls into this group versus another group. But even in, even in Sheets, you can have a field for what group the term is part of. I think there's some really cool tools out there that help people enforce that an official term is being, or that an approved term is being used, within your browser or things like that. But that's probably a graduate level technique.
As I always say, so the tools are not solving the problems. So people are solving the problems, and the tools just can help them to make it more efficiently. I will get back. I will get back to the business rules, but first I see that we have some question from the LinkedIn, which is related back to the topic what's going on after the initial project. So how do you foster the governance mindset that would ensure that the glossary is kept alive? So something that we touched.
Yeah, so I've lived through a lot of those kind of those efforts, CMMI, Lean Six Sigma, governance, etc. And what I have found is that achieving CMMI, achieving Lean Six Sigma, achieving data governance becomes the project, rather than communicating the importance and the value of it and the impact if you fail to use it. So, for example, if it was a part of the challenge for the terms within a glossary is what goes wrong when people don't use agreed upon terms. What are the impacts? What does it mean when, what kind of things could go wrong or be misinterpreted, or what kind of products could any user within the organization create that don't return value to their leadership? At the end of the day, almost everything we create in the reporting and dashboarding, et cetera, world is to guide one of our leaders to help make a decision. So I know that's not a magic bullet there for you, LinkedIn user, but it does have to be, they have to have a vested interest in it.
I just seen that we got another question. Actually, there is one question before Bart asks again. And what I got now is, in most organizations, especially in manufacturing sector, people don't understand the importance of glossary and its usage. So how to overcome with this deadlock? I think that.
Yeah, so, like I mentioned earlier, unfortunately, it's when a lot of times what happens is it's when they get to the edge of the cliff and they realize they can't move to the next stage because they haven't agreed on certain terms or usages, et cetera. And that always happens in a technology project. Very few people, probably even myself, would agree that, I need a glossary because I need a glossary. So it has to be tied to some other business outcome, some other achievement, goal, objective within your organization that says, if we do this step, which hopefully is not too hard, we have a better chance or a better opportunity of achieving these goals, these objectives down the line.
I just noting because again, I would have so many comments and questions and reactions to this. Unfortunately, our time is slowly but surely running. So I see that Bart is asking. Actually, I had this question prepared as well. It's one of the toughest one. So Bart is asking, can you say something on ROI companies achieved implementing a good glossary?
I may have to reserve the right to get smarter on that one, Bart. That is a very hard one. I think what off the cuff I would say is that what does the glossary enable within the organization? Or better said, what does a common understanding of the terms or the words or the things that we're talking about enable an organization to be more effective and more efficient? I'll be glad to go off and spend some cycles on that. And Bart, we can chat on LinkedIn if you want, if you have any ideas as well.
Again, I fully agree with you. I have to say that the more mature company, the easier is to calculate some ROI, because of course, if you let's say document your time that you are spending on creating new reports or bringing new products or aligning some plans or strategies, then you can start measuring the influence of the business glossary, because this is exactly so. The first visible will be, from my experience, also the efficiency, as you said. And of course, it's very hard to say that it enables you to start doing some more advanced data-related topics, because if you cannot do it without a business glossary, you cannot do it. I'm talking about complex things, so it's very hard to bring the ROI. And actually, the ROI is something which is a magic, I would say, word for any projects I saw, and it's sometimes very hard to.
Very mystical.
Yeah.
Well, one example of an ROI in the consulting world is data reuse. If we can maintain a registry, a glossary of all the different terms we use, I mean, we try to reuse requirement statements, we try to reuse architecture diagrams, etc., so that it cuts down the amount of time it takes for us to deliver a recommendation to our clients, because clients want recommendations quickly. And so that is one ROI that we have found as a consulting agency, is if we can go to the shelf and pull some of these things off and then just tailor them for the specific client, that reduces the amount of time we're spending on some of the prep work for the project.
Again, definitely agree. So that the most obvious, is at least direction for the ROI, is efficiency, and basically how fast and faster you can create or deliver your project, or even succeed on the project, because of alignment, and of course not to jeopardize that you deliver something which will be not accepted, because it's actually, I believe that when I was inviting people to this episode, I was thinking how to explain or how to position glossary against data catalogs. We can maybe spend 1-2 sentences on this. And to me, I don't know if you like it or not, was like, if you would like to build a garden house, you would most likely start with defining what is your expectation from the building, what is actually would bring it to you, to your kids, to your wife, and you will not start with cataloging or making inventory of materials that you already have and on the garden. And I think it's the same. So the business glossary is actually the cornerstone, the start for everything. And with a good glossary, you can then deliver your project faster and better with higher quality. And I think that to define the ROI is first to know what are the current costs, and then to compare them with the costs after you brought the glossary. And again, I absolutely agree with you, and also this is our experience from projects. It doesn't matter on the technology, and sometimes it's even better to start with something simple like Excel, and to collect the knowledge and to spread it, and then first start, or later on start with some more sophisticated.
Right. Well, there's definitely a connection, right, between the glossary and the catalog and the dictionaries, right?
But, and the data quality and everything.
Right, all of those things matter, and there should be consistency between them. But the consumer of those products is different from one to the other, and so that's why we try to keep it simple in the beginning, but it doesn't minimize the need for a good data catalog and then a good data dictionary, and then so on.
Definitely. So as soon as you know what you would like to build and what should be the purpose, should be the barbecue inside and so on, then you of course start need to understand what material you need. So you start to building your data dictionary or data catalog.
Absolutely.
It's as I was expecting, great conversation. unfortunately, the time is a little bit against us. So I think it's time, John, to thank you very much for your time today, for sharing your experience, for
Pleasure.
talking with me. I really appreciate it. I wish you and you guys good luck and lots of success. I believe that you are already doing great things.
Great.
And we will definitely stay in touch.
Absolutely.
I will.
Looking forward to continuing the conversation online.
Sure, we will. And I would also like to thank to the audience. So I would like to ask to follow us, to leave a like or a comment if they like what they hear. And thank you for watching, and see you at the next episode of Accurity Data Vibes.